It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand. Right.
Guess I should bring that down. I said, I guess I should bring the music down. Bring it way down.
It's down.
It's down. Good morning, everyone. And
Good morning.
I thought I'd pop the grasshopper up there and blooming spring beauty there, just so people could see what it's like when it's spring. You know, I have to say something, though. It has not been a hard winter. Mm-mm. So all you folks who are whining that it's the middle of February and, oh, it's so cold and we can't, when is it going to be spring? I'm like, come on, really? Get over yourself.
Well, it is winter.
It is
Hey,
winter, yeah. Hey,
my snowdrops are up about an inch right now.
You know what? I planted snowdrops several years ago, and they nothing happened. So I have to get more. But I haven't even looked to see.
No, I had to look. I was like, earlier in this week, I said, on one of those days when it was bright and sunny, ooh, I wonder if the snowdrops are out. Go out, move all the leaves where I know there are some. Yes!
There we go. And I've got the 10,000 sparrows at all of my feeders with the occasional house finch. And I saw something this morning at the feeder in front, and it looked like a cardinal. Maybe it was a juvenile cardinal, but it seems a little early for a juvenile cardinal. It
could be one of last year's.
Yeah, it had a crest like a cardinal, but it was brownish and smaller than a cardinal. Are there birds like that?
Could be just a smaller female cardinal, maybe?
That's what I was thinking. It looked like a female cardinal. But I just wondered if there were maybe other birds that have that kind of crest and maybe, you know, a new bird. So, you know, because I look at my feeder and I see mostly 10,000 sparrows and pigeons and now the red squirrels or the red-tailed squirrels. We're
not calling them red squirrels.
No, that's true. We don't do that here on this show. We call them the
umber.
Right, the ochre squirrels, as we said the other day.
I'm looking out at juncos. I got juncos.
Oh, yeah, the juncos are in the backyard. Love the juncos. They're great. And
I'm still getting red poles and pine siskins. From what I understand, it's been quite the year for them.
I wouldn't know.
They come down from Canada and they follow the food.
You know, I did see a pine siskin in my yard either last year or the year before, and then I don't think I've seen one since. It's tougher down here in the city. You're closer to the lake, and you're in Highland Park, and you know, you get the high rent birds. I don't get I get the 10,000 sparrows.
If you put thistle out, you may attract more of them.
Domenico thinks, he said titmouse, possibly.
Yep, I was thinking that too. Yeah, tufted.
I'm gonna look.
They're more sparrow size.
Are they? Yeah. Well, this was bigger than a sparrow, smaller than a cardinal.
Cedar waxwings, but those are much more of a brown, and it's kind of off season for them.
uh, and Betsy wants to know why. Well, she said your collection of birds sounds like mine. Yeah.
She wants to know why we don't say red squirrels.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same way we don't wear, same reason we don't wear MAGA hats here. All right, that's kind of what we're talking about. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. I have to show you what was on my breakfast plate this morning. It was look at that, a star.
Slinky?
The star slinky appeared from somewhere. I don't know. It was magically on my breakfast plate here.
That Gata is so smart. Legata
just brought me a little gift. Yeah, I could see her trotting downstairs with a little slinky in her mouth and putting it on the plate. So that was kind of cool. And we've got a lot of great stuff on the show for you today. We're talking critters, the good kind, the kind that in my house runs upstairs when I start the show, and then I don't see again. And of course you were dealing with the beast just before.
He did not want to. He didn't want to go on the front porch. He wanted to join the show today, probably because of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it may be. And welcome to everybody who's watching us here. The subscriptions continue to come in, and I'm really pleased at that. We announced last week that we had donated $10,015 to the Save Belleville Prairie Fund.
1,015.
I'm sorry, 1,000. Okay, I can hear Kathleen in the kitchen. Not 10,000, not 10,000.
We wish it were 10,000. I
wish it were. But people are still subscribing, and some people who are new to the program, welcome. It's great to have you, and you'll see today that we go off in a slightly different direction. We do like to talk about all creatures, great and small, not to coin a phrase, and how to care for them, and what the powers that be are doing to make lives better for those creatures. And that's why we're going to have Ryan Anderson on this morning from Midwest Grows Green, and we're going to have Jodie Wiederkehr from the Chicago Alliance for Animals, and talk about several issues I think you're going to be interested in. Peggy and I are going to do our usual mishmash.
Talking about cool stuff.
We need a name for that segment we do at 10 o'clock where we go through these various stories, because there's some good ones out there. I'm going to recap my visit to Skokie last week, to the Board of Trustees meeting where they were deciding the fate of the Carvana car dispenser of bird death, and which was approved, unfortunately, but it might not be over. The story might not be over yet. We're going to talk maybe a little bit about what's going on at Belleville Prairie. We've got some other stories. Rick DiMaio, meteorologist, is going to be here to talk to us a little bit more about what happens environmentally when you do big-time Olympics. It ain't good, really, no matter how you slice it. It's not good for the Olympics have become this albatross that we need to figure out how to fix. It's I honestly, I haven't watched any of it, not a minute. I know you've been watching it, Peggy, and that's fine. You know, that's obviously you're put on your MAGA hat. It's a free country, and you have a right to take a truck and block anything you want. But I haven't. I don't know. I can't make myself do it. So, but that's
I'm not watching the Super Bowl, but that's a different story.
Well, see, and I will, and it is a different story.
Speaking of resource issues.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the whole thing. It's all sports is so big and out of control. We need to figure out how to rein it in, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. So we're kind of stuck with
not in this 2 hours.
Not ever in this world, believe me. Okay, so without further ado, let's get to the issues at hand and bring in a friend of the show, Ryan Anderson from Midwest Grows Green. Ryan, how you doing this morning? Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Oh, okay. That's what I was afraid. I thought, yeah, hold on. Let me get your mic on. I think that's me. I thought I had it all set up, but I didn't. So, all right, here we go. Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And I apologize for that. I'm sorry. Good morning.
Morning.
Ryan is the IPM manager of Midwest Grows Green, and you just got promoted recently, didn't you?
I did, yeah. We have a number of community IPM programs, so I'm leading all three or four of them that we have at the IPM Institute.
And
Great news.
and for those of you who don't know, IPM stands for Integrated Pest Management. And that, in a nutshell, the way I always explain it, if folks ask me about it, I say it's a program that encourages you to take the least toxic solution to a problem first if you're dealing with pests in your garden or your farm or wherever, and then work your way to the most toxic and hope that the least toxic will deal with an issue before you have to get down to the dirty stuff. Do you think that's a fair assessment of that?
Yeah. I say using all the tools in your toolbox and using pesticides as the last resort. So we're talking about lawn care a lot, and there's a lot of cultural practices that you can apply before you can resort to a chemical like aeration, overseeding, watering properly, and everything like that.
Yeah, and of course, Ryan has been on our program before, and generally, what we're talking about is natural lawn care and how you can do it safely. And gosh, I encourage people to eschew the chemicals, and please, you don't need them.
Yeah.
Seriously, you don't need them.
And
Go.
Ryan, you work with municipalities, park districts, and institutional spaces on their property as well. So it's not just homeowners.
Yeah, correct. Because we think parks and green spaces bring a lot of the groups that we're trying to target. Sports and recreational field managers, but also homeowners, because they're enjoying these parks. And so we want to make sure that they're enjoying these parks without any synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. And that's what we're doing through what we call the Technical Assistance Program, or TAP for short, where we're helping a number of different municipalities, park districts, school districts across the greater Chicago area transition from synthetic pesticides and fertilizers.
And what I would say to homeowners, Ryan, is if various parks can do it, if even the city of Chicago has gone to a more natural kind of lawn care in its parks. If the city of Chicago can do it, what are you doing slamming chemicals on your tiny little plot of land at home? So it can be done, and it's not that hard, and it'll save you money. And the other thing that we're going to talk about today, it'll keep your pets and your kids and yourself healthy, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the chemicals that is used most frequently in lawn and garden care is called 2,4-D. It's active in green Scots, turf filter, weed and feed, and most of the lawn chemicals or pesticides that we're applying. And there's been multiple studies that have linked it to human cancer. It's a possible carcinogen by the International Association for the Research on Cancer. But also dogs exposed to 2,4-D and herbicide-treated lawns double their chance of contracting canine lymphoma, and certain breeds, their chance of contracting bladder cancer increases by 4 to 7 times.
Wow.
Well, what I would say is 2,4-D, which is 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, and I learned that long ago, and you just some of those things stick with you. Is probably the most toxic chemical that the average homeowner knows the least about. Everybody is focused on Roundup. This is the thing that people know. They know Roundup, mainly because it's got a clever name, which they use for marketing. But the backfire on that is that that's something that's burned into people's brains and they remember. So there needs to be a common name for 2,4-D. Then people would have that burned in their brain because nobody's got 2,4-D in the front of their mind when they're putting stuff down. But when you go to a store, well, let me say first of all, weed and feed. If the bag says weed and feed, it means fertilizer and poison, basically. You don't kill the weeds by accident or by good wishes or by prayer. you kill them with the substances you put in the bag. So I just tell people, don't ever buy a product that's called weed and feed. That's a tip off right there. But they're not all weed and feeds don't have 2,4-D. There are other chemicals as well, right, Ryan?
Yeah, and I do think there is one that's organic. I think it's with corn gluten, and I think I forgot the company that sells it, but most of them are 2,4-D. We call it a three-way herbicide: 2,4-D, dicamba, and MCPP is the other chemical. Mm-hmm.
Well, what I urge people to do, and that's a really good point, that some companies tout corn gluten meal as an organic herbicide. Now, in my research, and you might disagree with me, Ryan, as far as I can tell, the jury is still out on corn gluten meal. First of all, you have to apply it at exactly the right time under exactly the right conditions. And what it does, it prevents seeds from germinating, not just weed seeds, all seeds. So you can't put corn gluten meal down and then seed your lawn with grass seed, because it'll prevent that from germinating too under the right conditions. But the problem is you have to do it exactly at the right time in the spring, which makes it difficult to do, and a lot of people are not going to take the care to do that exactly right. But what I urge folks to do is when you're buying products, any product for your lawn or garden, read the label, see what's on there, and if you don't recognize a name, look it up. You've got your phone with you usually. You just go boop 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 boop, and you can find that out.
Don't just remember the commercial you saw and look for that brand.
Yeah. So that is the quick. That is the starter's guide. Well, you're going to be well. Let's get into the event that you're holding a week from today on February 20th. It has to do with what we're talking about right now, but you wouldn't guess it from the title. It's called Hounds and Grounds, and it's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you've got some great sponsors, including Hawk City Canine, the Pet Fund, and Athletic Brewing Company. And okay, I didn't warn you about this, but here we go. Here's this. This is Athletic Brewing Company.
It's NA craft beer. Yep.
This is, I'm telling you, this is one of the best non-alcoholic beers I have ever tasted. And I grabbed this out of my refrigerator this morning because I stock it here. It is called Run Wild. And if you want a good IPA that tastes like an IPA, I've noticed that some...
They have a good amber, too. They make a good amber and a good stout.
I haven't been able to find their amber at my...
Binny's.
I know. That's where I go. That's where I get this. I haven't been able to find the amber at my Binny's. I'll have to keep trying. But I actually do get another amber. But one of the things I've noticed about non-alcoholic beers, a lot of them taste like strong tea. And you go, well, that's not really good. But
those are the old ones.
Yeah, this is robust, and I'm going to have to zap this when I send this show out to my low frequency FM stations, because no product placement. But they're one of the sponsors of Hounds and Grounds. So tell us, what is Hounds and Grounds all about?
And also Canine Therapy Corps.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's going to be at Canine Therapy Corps. So all these people are involved, and there are more as well. So give us a preview of that, Ryan.
Yeah, so Athletic is our main sponsor for this event, but it's called Hounds and Grounds, and it's at Canine Therapy Corps, which is in the Logan Square neighborhood. And it's raising awareness for rising canine cancer rates across the United States. So we have Stacy Hawk, who is an experienced dog agility course instructor, and she's going to take all the dogs through an introductory dog agility course. It'll be for about 30 minutes or so, and then that'll be followed up with a natural lawn care presentation from myself, as well as Good Nature Organic Lawn Care, just talking about how you can reduce the risks of herbicides as well as lawn fertilizers for dogs and other pets. And so all this work is supporting our technical assistance program. So all of the funds will go towards our our work helping parks eliminate their synthetic pesticides and fertilizers use. And then we're also sharing more natural lawn care information with the communities that are living by all these parks to just protect more pets, people, as well as pollinators.
All right. Before the show, I was talking to the two of you and asking you and Peggy, what the heck is a dog agility course, and why should a dog take it? Can you give us an answer to that, Ryan? And I know Peggy, you were looking it up a little bit too.
Yeah, to the best of my ability, because I'm actually not a dog owner, but Stacy Hawk, she does these dog agility to give both the pets as well as their owners, some physical activity, especially out in the winter. But she does these agility courses throughout the year. And it's a lot of technical training, kind of to improve the connection between the owner and the dog. And so the agility course, it's going to be pretty introductory, but there's going to be some jumps that they're going to help the dogs go through, and as well as some hoops and stuff like that. So it's a really great opportunity to get exercise for your dog as well as for yourself, and just to kind of improve your connection with your furry animals.
Yeah,
And
and it also gives dogs the opportunity to do something different, kind of stretches their capabilities, exercises their mind as well as their body. It's part of the point too.
And this is a
Yeah.
really smart thing you're doing, which is get folks in to do something good for their dogs, but they can do something good for their dogs by getting rid of the chemicals on their lawn. I mean, you need to explain to them some of the things we've been talking about right here, is how dangerous this can be. And it's not just your dogs, it's your cats, it's your kids, it's you. Studies show
It's
that
the wildlife in your yard that are
Right,
walking across it too.
Mm-hmm.
right. If we were talking about birds earlier. You don't want to. Pesticides kill a lot of birds in this country every year. Somebody was writing the other day on when we were talking about the Carvana Tower in Skokie, about how many birds would slam into that, and somebody said, "Well, what about wind turbines?" And wind turbines are like way down on the list. Yes, they kill birds, probably 1 million a year, but cats kill over 2 billion birds a year, and windows kill 500 million birds a year. And pesticides are in like the 50 to 60 million birds range per year. So pesticides are a big deal. And again, the point I want to make is for the average homeowner, and I'm talking the average homeowner, you don't need this stuff. You really don't. And Ryan, you teach all the time about how to do natural lawn care, and it's the same old stuff: mow high, overseed, add compost, core aerate, water infrequently but deeply. Boom, done. That's kind of the whole trick, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, for home lawns too, because most of the time when we're dealing with problems on sports fields and stuff like that, it is with soil compaction, and you're not going to get a lot of soil compaction on your home lawns because it's just not receiving that much foot traffic. So if you can reduce that soil compaction, allow those air, water, nutrients to get in and out of that soil profile, you should be able to grow healthy grass without any synthetic chemicals.
Yeah, and one of the things you guys report, and by the way, go to my website, MikeNowak.net. I've got a lot of links to this, including the link to how to register for Hounds and Grounds, and we'll get to that in a second, because you can only have so many people there, obviously, in a few hours that you're doing it. But one of the things you report is that nearly half of dogs over the age of 10 will develop cancer. And 1 in 4 under the age of 10 will develop cancer. That's kind of
And the cancer rates are going up. Is the other side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing, and it makes me wonder whether are we getting away from the chemical use, or is it just becoming worse?
Well, unfortunately, I just read an article last week from EcoWatch that showed that the use of 2,4-D between 2012 and 2020 in our nation went up by 70%. So
Yikes.
that was the first time that I saw that statistic, and that was kind of jarring. Of course, that's not just solely lawn care; that's also agriculture too. But that's a kind of shocking one, and also rates in they did urine samples for people in that study, and they in 2001, 2002, there's urine rates was about 17%. They found 2,4-D. In 2014, they found it in 40% of people that they tested in that survey. So unfortunately, rates for 2,4-D use is going up, and that's likely one contributing factor to the rise in canine cancer, as well as rise in cancer in people too.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out is that, and if I mention this again, I apologize, but it bears repeating. Studies are showing that stuff ends up in your home. Okay, you think a lot of folks say, "Well, it's in the yard." I'll just keep the kids off the yard, which is dumb anyway, because kids like to roll in grass, as dogs like to roll in grass.
Or adults.
Or adults, yes, or cats, or whatever critters are out there.
Squirrels and whatever is in your yard.
But you know what? That stuff gets in your home. It comes in. Your dogs bring it in. Your cats bring it in. You bring it in. Your feet bring it in. And guess where it goes? It goes onto your rugs and onto your carpet. And how often does it rain? Outside, you can rain and wash some of that stuff away. How often does it rain indoors on your carpet? And how often do you wash your carpets and your rugs?
And your pets are down low, and the people sitting or playing on the floor or whatever. Yeah, it doesn't go away.
So this is stuff to keep in mind. So let's talk about the logistics of Hounds and Grounds. It's, as I mentioned before, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. How are the segments going to work, Ryan?
Yeah, so we have 4 1-hour and 30-minute segments. The first one at 10 a.m. is already filled up, and there's 2 spots left for the second one. And basically, we're going to split them up into groups of 5. So 5 will go through the agility course, 5 will go through my natural lawn care presentation, and then we'll switch them out to the agility course and vice versa. And then at the end, there's some refreshments from Athletic Brewing Company, as well as some food from Trader Joe's and coffee from Dark Matter. And we have some goodie bags of actually upcycled burlap bags from Dark Matter coffee that we're creating. And those goodie bags will include dog food, people food, and some other goodies for the attendees.
Yeah, I had to pop up the graphic here. You've got a lot, as I mentioned before, a lot of great sponsors on it, and among them, let me go to this sheet. Here we are. As you mentioned, Athletic Brewing Company, PetSmart, Good Nature Organic Lawn Care, Jiminy's, Beatrix Streeterville, Schreiber Foods, Chipotle, Dark Matter Coffee, Trader Joe's, and 6 Point Pet. That's a pretty good...
Trader Joe's.
What did I say?
Trader Joy.
Trader Joe's? Well, it's whatever. Same thing.
And the pet fund.
Yeah,
and of course, the pet fund. What is the pet fund?
Yeah, so the pet fund, some of the funds from raised are going to go to the pet fund. They provide financial assistance to families for veterinary care. And they were kind of the inspiration behind this event because when they started in the 90s, about 20% of their requests were for cancer treatment. And now last year, it was about 60% of their requests were for cancer treatment. And to put that in perspective, they get about 70,000 requests per year. And treatment for canine cancer can reach up to $10,000. So it's a large problem as we're continuing to try to treat canine cancer. So we're trying to help to prevent canine cancer as much as possible.
Look, folks, dog might get canine cancer. Why make it worse? Why give another source of a cancer? Have another source available to your beloved pets. Very quickly before we go, this is just the start of things. We're getting into the growing season in another month and a half. And what is Midwest Grows Green going to be doing?
So part of this is going to be supporting our technical assistance program, and we are helping a number of communities, but we're on our first year for 3 communities right now, the City of Lake Forest, the Clarion Hills Park District, and the River Forest Park District. And we're helping them transition one space away from synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, a very highly trafficked space. And so we're going to be helping them do that, and we're going to be sharing with the local communities all the work that goes into transitioning these fields away from synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. So that's through our technical assistance program. And then last thing I want to mention is Good Nature Organic Lawn Care is going to be Green Shield certified, which is going to be a certification for IPM as well as organic landscaping. So it's a very rigorous certification that is run by the IPM Institute of North America. And they're going to be piloting that certification, that we're hoping that certification will go across the nation. So be on the lookout for that in May of this year.
And I'm glad you're working with them. They've been on the show a couple of times. So in fact, I think we got to have them back and talk about natural lawn care techniques. Ryan Anderson from Midwest Grows Green. You want more information, go to midwestgrowsgreen.org. Simple enough. Or you can go to my website, MikeNowak.net. I've got all the information up on the blog for today's show. I'm sure we'll be talking again. It's always a pleasure to have you on board.
Yep. Thank you for having me. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
Great to see you, Ryan.
It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We're talking more about pets when we come back. From spring seed and soil treatments to summer foliar feeding to fall stubble digesters, Blazing Star provides microbial tools from tiny biologicals for natural and organic farmers. They have solutions for home gardeners too. And Blazing Star also offers agroecological education and consulting, especially for permaculture work in zones 4 and 5. Learn more about these great folks and great techniques at blazing-star.com.
So this is a very simple PAR meter, and I'm going to measure the PAR value of this fluorescent light, which was purchased at a Home Depot specifically for growing and advertised as a seed starting light. Minimally for PAR value for just seed starting, so just to the seedling stage, you want a minimum of 80, really. 75 to 100 will do the trick. I would say 100 to 150 is far better. But right now, at about a foot above the plants, we're getting 49. So now we're going to, let me plug in our Happy Leaf light. This is our 17-inch Procyon 2.0, and it's a really great all-around light. They also come in 33-inch lights, which I have set up here, which is where I'm going to actually put my seed flat. Let's get it about a foot over. I'm getting a value of 335.
I don't really have a favourite tree specifically. Trees are so different, and at different ages they have different things that make them interesting. Scots pine trees have fantastic bark. The giant redwood is fantastic again because of the bark and the size of it. My name is Gary Hill and trees are my thing, but I'm also into shrubs. Keep calm and prune on.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. I got caught there a little bit because I was looking at some of the comments coming over the chat. Mm-hmm. One thing I want to mention about the chat really quickly is we can respond to most of your comments if you're on the Mike Nowak Show on Facebook, meaning the the Mike Nowak Show Facebook page. If you and
Not
on
your
YouTube
personal page.
and YouTube. And if you go to YouTube or the Mike Nowak Show on Facebook, you can see our responses. If you're watching the show at my personal page, Mike Nowak, you can't see our comments coming back. And it makes me think I might be discontinuing streaming to that page. So think about that. Think about migrating over to YouTube or the Mike Nowak Show on Facebook, also on Twitter. And I don't think we can respond to the Twitter
We
comments
don't even
either.
see the Twitter comments coming through.
So I've been working with Restream this week just to see what's going on, but oh well.
Yeah.
You know, there's
all
limitations.
sorts of fun things with Restream chat.
Everybody's got a ceiling. Facebook has a ceiling. Restream has a ceiling. Twitter has a ceiling. They all have ceilings. And so anyway, I was looking at some of the comments. Barbara wrote about Ryan. He has been instrumental in changing the mindset of Elmhurst residents. I like to hear that. Dan Costa says, in regard to pesticides, always the least toxic first. The less pesticide use, the better. High toxic chemicals are usually not needed, as I said here. I'm glad you agree with me, Dan. And Skeet said there are lawn applications that can have a negative effect on trees. Yikes. And yes, that's the other thing. You want to protect your other plants. You put some of this stuff down. Don't try growing vegetables if you're putting 2,4-D in your lawn. Yeah. So it's something to...
Or if your neighbor is. And Shelley just says, get rid of grass lawn.
Hey, that gets a ding. For me, when my theory on lawns, when in doubt, rip it out. So, okay. And look at Jodie, sorry to make you sit through that, but it's all part of this conversation, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
Jodie Wiederkehr, of course, is with Chicago Alliance for Animals. She's founder of the Partnership to Ban Horse Carriages Worldwide. And guess what? She was successful in Chicago. I mean, we're more than a year now since the carriage horses left Chicago. How you feel about that?
I'm ecstatic. I was just down on Michigan Avenue on Thursday for an event, and it's just nice going down there and not seeing the horses just standing there and being exploited in the freezing cold or the hot summer. Yeah.
And your group was instrumental in getting them to go away, documenting every day the conditions under which those horses were working, and they were working hard. And you were finally able to get city council to ban the horse carriage trade in Chicago. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
But now you're kind of moving on to the next chapter. And one of the issues that you want to deal with now, and we'll talk about several of these, but it kind of starts with the law to ban puppy mills in the state of Illinois, and eventually you want to get to the point where there are no sales of animals. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, why is that bad? I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who are going to say, what's wrong with buying a cat or a dog? Tell us what is wrong with that.
Well, what it comes down to is when you go to a pet store to buy an animal, often you are not educated on how to care for that animal, what the animal needs, nor are they educating potential buyers about how long a cat or a dog or a tortoise or whatever animal might live, and that it should be a lifetime commitment. Most pet stores, as long as you have the money or credit card to buy, that's all you need. Whereas when you adopt from a reputable animal shelter or rescue, there are people who educate potential adopters about all those things. And so there's a very good chance that that animal might live his or her full life with their adopting family and have a good life. When animals are bought, many are dumped when the family either realizes that it's too much trouble or too much money or too much care, or the child no longer wants the animal. So they'll either dump them at our Chicagoland animal shelters, or dump them in the forest preserve. So it's really important that animals are seen as sentient beings and not, like furniture, material goods.
Well, I'm sure there are folks out there who are going to say, well, wait a second, how do I get a purebred then? I mean, I don't want a mutt. I love mutts, by the way. I think mutts are the best. But what about those folks? How are they going to get their animals?
Well, there are rescue groups all over the country specializing in specific breeds. So if you want a specific breed, you can just go online and look up, a boxer rescue or whatever breed you're looking for. And that's the way to go about it, is to work with rescues and reputable animal shelters to find the perfect companion for you.
Well, to that end, I know that you've been fighting the battle in Chicago to end the sale of dogs and cats in pet stores. Yeah. And last year, two things happened. The city of Chicago tightened up its rules because there was a loophole in their puppy mill bill. But more importantly, the state of Illinois stepped up and passed the Humane Pet Store Bill, HB 1711. It was signed into law by Governor Pritzker in August of last year. Some people might not know it. And what they also might not know is that it goes into effect in about 2 weeks. What is that bill going to do, Jodie?
Well, that will stop the sale of cats and dogs and puppies and kittens from being bought from animal pet stores. So people will actually have to adopt cats or dogs instead of being able to just go buy one at any store. No reputable breeder will ever sell to a pet store. And so this bill will help save animals, and it will also help our animal shelters in the state of Illinois and put less pressure on them, because we'll be getting those dogs and cats out of shelters and into good homes instead of having to euthanize because there aren't enough cages or aren't enough homes.
So, Jodie, for our listeners who might not know what a puppy mill is, could you explain that term?
Sure. Well, they're not so much in Chicagoland or the state of Illinois, but a lot of puppy mills are in, say, Missouri, Iowa, Pennsylvania, and they are basically, these big farms where dogs live in horrific conditions, oftentimes in wire cages, in all temperatures, in the bitter cold and the heat of the summer. Often when the puppies, they impregnate the mothers over and over again so they can get litters of puppies. And those puppies are the ones that are sent to Chicago or to the pet stores for people to buy. And so when you go to these places to see their puppies, the bad parts of these places are hidden. They take you into an area where everything looks nice and good, but in the back, and there's been major animal rights organizations that have exposed these puppy mills, and you see these animals and these mother dogs who are have been impregnated over and over again, living just miserable lives, especially when dogs are, companion animals who crave attention, and they're living in cages all alone with no enrichment and oftentimes not even the basic necessities.
You mentioned before reputable breeders. Is there such a thing?
Well, the way I look at it is, as long as animals are still being euthanized because there aren't enough homes or there aren't enough cages in those shelters, I don't think anybody should be breeding dogs or breeding cats. I think everybody should be getting their, companion animals. I mean, if you need an animal, there's one out there for you. So when we get to a day where animals are not being put down because there aren't enough homes, then maybe that's something we can look at. But I don't really think it's a good thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's something that, something you should consider then when you're when you want to get an animal is you can give an animal in a shelter a good home, and believe me, you're not going to care exactly. Once you fall in love with that
Yeah.
animal, you're not going to care what breed it is or whether it's a mutt.
And it doesn't have
And
to
a
be cute little puppies and kittens either. Senior dogs, senior cats, very often
make wonderful,
new
wonderful
homes.
companions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times the animals that do come from breeders, they have a lot of issues. A lot of medical issues, oftentimes from being overbred. So I definitely recommend adoption over buying from a breeder. And also, you're going to pay a minimal adoption fee that's going to cover the spay or neuter and the medical care, as opposed to paying thousands of dollars to someone who profits off of letting animals reproduce.
And getting back to the bill that got passed, my attention was drawn to this last week when I saw a post by Mark Ayers from the Humane Society. He's the Illinois director of the Humane Society,
And he's been on this program several times too in the past.
and he's my hero. I mean, this is Mark Ayers is one tough dude. Okay, you do not mess with Mark Ayers, and I know he's gotten death threats, which just astounds me.
He's
okay?
had a lot of memes lately up about him. He posted that people are putting memes up about him, and
Oh yeah, they doctor photos and they accuse him of raking in cash because he's putting the puppy mills out of business and just stupid stuff and obviously fake stuff, and that's why he's my hero, because he shrugs and says these people are idiots, but the problem is you don't want them to be dangerous idiots. So I saw he had posted
there's
something.
a lot of money in the industry. Yes.
Well, and that's the point, is that we have this guy, State Representative Will Davis, a Democrat from Homewood, introduced a measure that would allow pet shop operators to sell dogs from a, quote, verified breeder in state or out of state. And the DuPage County board member, Brian Krzyzewski, said no reputable breeder would ever sell their animals to a store. You just said that, Jodie. And this is the last gasp of the puppy mill industry to stop this bill, but it ain't going to happen because in 2 weeks it goes into effect. It becomes law in Illinois. But it's just discouraging to see a Democrat doing this. And trying to gut this bill, because if you're getting puppies from out of state, then Illinois has no say. They have no jurisdiction over puppies and how they're being bred out of state. So the only way you stop this is say you can't come into Illinois, and sooner or later, if all the states say that, we're only the fifth state to have a puppy mill bill, and that's discouraging too, isn't it?
Very much so. I mean, when we were working on the Chicago, trying to close that loophole in Chicago to get the bill that passed in 2014 to go into effect and to be enforced, there were officials who said, well, you're not going to stop the puppy mills. Well, we can't, Illinois lawmakers can't shut down a puppy mill in Iowa, but we can stop the supply and demand, which is how it all works. So it's a matter of, stopping and banning the sale here in Illinois and other states. And if other states start passing these humane measures, then the puppy mills will start to have to shut down because they're not going to be able to sell their puppies to these other states.
And that's the whole idea, which takes us to other animals. And one of the things that
I was going to ask, as we transition into the rest of the conversation, is there any hope for future bills in the relatively near future for other animals, rabbits especially, which are huge? Springtime, Easter, people get the rabbits, they give them up for adoption, and birds. And is there other bills in the works, like a puppy mill ban?
Well, in Chicago, the bill does include, or the law, I should say, does include rabbits. Unfortunately, the Illinois state bill does not. But I know Mark and the Humane Society of the United States will be, I'm sure, working on these, just progressing with these issues. And And Chicago Alliance for Animals obviously is a very small grassroots organization compared to Mark's organization, but we are definitely trying to also work on these issues and try to ban the sale of animals currently in the village of Lincolnwood, which is just on the northwest border of Chicago.
Yeah, that takes us to that conversation about all animals. Part of the problem is that, as we mentioned before, a lot of people don't know how to handle a rabbit or a hedgehog or something else that they might. Some of
Or don't know where it came from and wouldn't buy it if they did.
Right. That is a disturbing part of it, and I got a couple of links there that you sent me, Jody, and I appreciate it. About where the wild animals come from. Sometimes they are from the wild, and there are black markets. Excuse me. And these animals and then end up in these stores, and people don't know the origins. It's in the middle of the sixth great mass extinction. We can't be doing this to animals across the world.
Yeah, and a lot of animals, the animals that end up at these pet stores are the lucky ones until they're abandoned, which probably happens on a very regular basis. But the animals that are being smuggled into pet stores, there are many who suffer and die in transit because it is a black market for exotic birds and exotic reptiles. And these are wild animals. They shouldn't be living in cages, should be living in the wild. So there is a store in Lincolnwood that we are hoping and working with village officials to try to get him to change his business model to sell only supplies, pet food, pet treats, pet toys, and stop selling live beings.
And let me show, this is a video that you sent me that you took of a tortoise.
We're outside the animal store.
And we can talk about that as we're watching this. When did you take this video?
I believe this was a couple weeks ago at the January.
We don't see any water
And
in her enclosure.
this tortoise, who we believe is 30 to 40 years old or so,
Living in a big bathtub
just continually walks around this small cage
with just
and
tile.
tries to climb up
There's nothing
on
natural
the
about
edge,
this.
which is tile, which has got to be a
Finally
little
got heat
slippery.
lamps for her, but I
And
believe those go
she
off
constantly
when
just
they turn off
falls and
the-
hits her neck
when they turn
and her
off the lights
head,
at night and lock
her
the
chin
doors.
on the tile.
She has no
And
water in
we've
her
never
enclosure.
once seen her have water in her enclosure, or her prison is what I call it. She never has water.
Keeps
We've
going
alerted
corner to corner.
the Illinois Department of Agriculture. We've alerted the police and Lincolnwood officials. The owner says that they don't drink a lot of water, that they get their water through produce, and that may be true. But we've also communicated with a woman who runs a tortoise sanctuary in Iowa, who says that wild animals should have fresh water at all times. And she said that the hay that they're using as bedding here is very dry and dusty. And so it's so important that she has fresh water at all times, should she want to drink it. And it's just very sad. Another thing that the founder of the sanctuary told us, that if a tortoise is constantly trying to climb the perimeter of her enclosure, that means she's feeling trapped and stressed. And this spur, is her name, could live to be 100 years old. And that is no life for an animal to live in basically a big bathtub.
And there's actually a history with Spur. Apparently, Spur was kidnapped back in 2011, and then they discovered her in a yard not very far away. So this is a very interesting tortoise, and I'm looking at the letter that the expert sent you, she wrote, sulcata tortoises are one of the most difficult tortoise species to keep in colder climates due to their size and enclosure requirements. Although it's hard to say how large is large enough, the tortoise's behavior should tell you if you've provided an adequate site. And that's kind of what you're looking at. And that's not the only animal at that store that you're concerned about. You mentioned before rabbits, and I was unaware that there is such a huge problem with rabbits. There's another store, the Red Door, which is actually down the road from.
Shelter.
Yeah, it's a shelter. And a lot of those rabbits end up getting dumped there, but rabbits also get dumped in forest preserves and other places.
Yeah. Yeah. Executives from Red Door have testified before Lincoln Woods Village officials, and the fact that they get so many rabbits dumped and abandoned at their animal shelter that were bought from the animal store. So the owner sells these animals, he makes a profit, and then he washes his hands of it. And then taxpayers who help fund, or donors who help fund this animal shelter, have to bear the brunt, and then finding homes for all these rabbits. So, and then we also have been in connection with a woman who runs a hedgehog rescue, and she has the same exact story, that she always gets calls from people who want to give her their hedgehog that they bought from this store in Lincolnwood.
And they do this, it's in terms of the rabbits at Easter. Oh, wouldn't this be fun? I'm going to get the kids a rabbit. And then they realize that it's much more difficult to keep than they thought. And now they're scrambling, or they don't scramble. They just dump it someplace, which is cruel and unnecessary, because you really, if you can't handle it, and you can't handle it, don't buy impulse pets. I mean, that's the weirdest thing ever.
That's why animal sales should be banned, because there are always going to be people who want a rabbit at Easter time, or they want a puppy at Christmas to buy for their girlfriend or boyfriend. Unless that person is willing to make a lifetime commitment, which is what shelters and rescues screen people for, then you shouldn't. Animals are not toys. They're not something you can play with for 6 months and then just abandon. They're living beings. So that's the importance of the ban on animal sales, because there's never going to be a time where everybody's going to say, oh, I'm going to make a lifetime commitment. I'm going to realize that this cat might live to be 22 years old. And I'm going to, if I move cross country, this cat goes with me. So that's the importance of these different towns realizing that animals are not things and they shouldn't be sold. And this store can do just fine selling everything but the animals.
And there's a board meeting coming up this Tuesday, I believe, right, in Lincolnwood?
Yep, and they will be discussing our campaign on Tuesday night.
Are you? What is the vibe you're getting from the trustees? I looked at an article. I saw an article about a board meeting that was, I believe, in December, and it seemed like there's some
December 7th meeting.
Yeah, receptivity to your issue.
I believe we are educating them. Every 2 weeks, every other Tuesday, we are testifying, and we have volunteers, executives, board members from Red Door, from the Hedgehog Sanctuary, from just people who've seen Spur's videos, who've seen her in this cage, who are just horrified at the life that she has to live and exist. So I hope we are reaching them. We want to make sure that they don't just opt into the Cook County law, which is to not allow the sale of rabbits, because that won't help Spur. That won't help the foxes and the sugar gliders. And
if I might interrupt for a second, yeah, that's the argument they're making. Is like, well, we'll just follow the Cook County law, and you want more than that.
Oh yeah. We want Spur to go to sanctuary. She deserves room to roam. She deserves fresh water every day. I mean, at all times. And she deserves to live a more natural existence than living in a bathtub in a window in Chicagoland. They say that she should have ambient temperatures of like 80 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. We just saw that she got 2 heat lamps because of our work. But we saw that they went off when the lights, when they were closing at 6 or 7 p.m. So yeah, we want animals to be adopted and not bought.
What about the argument that you're going to put pet stores out of business if you do this?
There are pet stores all over Chicagoland that sell animal food. They sell cat litter. They sell treats. They sell toys. They sell bedding. And I have a friend who owns a pet supply store, and she does just fine. So, and we would even work with the owner if he does, change the business model from not selling animals to just selling supplies. I'd be happy to shop there, but I won't be shopping there until the sale of animals is banned. And I know many people who are feeling the same way, that they don't shop there because of the animal exploitation that they see every day.
If folks want to get involved, how do they do that?
Please check out the Chicago Alliance for Animals on Facebook. That's the best way to reach us. We do have a website, but if you want to get involved, send us a message on Facebook. We also are on Twitter at Shy Animal Rights, so it's at CHI Animal Rights. And
you're starting a petition to get...
You're on Instagram too, right, Jodie?
We are on Instagram. Yep, Chicago Alliance for Animals. And we do have a petition to free spur. Last I checked, we're around 1,000 signatures. And we also have business endorsements that we're asking any business that supports a ban on the sale of animals to sign. So we have Red Door has signed. We have numerous veterinarians who've signed. And I just started the endorsements recently, but those will add up, and it'll be thousands, if not millions, of people who want to see a ban on the sale of animals.
I need to read one thing to you. We posted a preview of this program the other day, and somebody commented, "You are compassionate people who clearly speak with intelligence and a focus on leading everyone to realize their full potential by helping make this planet a better place for all species. Thank you, Mike Nowak, Peggy Malecki, and Jodie Wiederkehr. CAA is an excellent organization to join to do easy 1-minute daily actions that bring results." So that was a nice comment to see on our YouTube channel.
That's great.
Yeah. All right, Jodie, always a pleasure to have you on. Good luck in your work. It's a long uphill battle.
Yes, it is. And we'll keep pushing. Thank you again. Nice talking to both of you.
All right. Have a great Sunday. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. When we come back, we'll talk about a little of this and stuff. Right. A little of this and a little of that. We'll be right back.
Well, it doesn't get much better than this. This is a 150-year-old American elm. Its canopy gives some of the best viewing points of the Nantucket Harbor. You just need to climb to the top for the best view. My name is Jim Cook. I'm an arborist in the Nantucket, Massachusetts office. I have the pleasure of taking care of this beautiful elm. Back in 2006, I had just been hired to be an IPM tech and climber for the Bartlett Tree Experts Company. During the winter of 2006, I had the opportunity to climb and prune this elm. It was a difficult and challenging job. I have climbed it a few times since, and each time is a very fantastic experience. And the best part, when working the east side of the canopy, the views of the harbor and Brant Point Lighthouse become epic. I will be the first to tell you that I love my job. I love being an arborist in a beautiful place like Nantucket. It's awesome. It is trees like this that stand out in my mind as the primary reason I chose arboriculture as a profession. But this elm in particular is my favorite tree, and I just wanted to share that with you.
From spring seed and soil treatments to summer foliar feeding to fall stubble digesters, Blazing Star provides microbial tools from tiny biologicals for natural and organic farmers. They have solutions for home gardeners too. And Blazing Star offers agroecological education and consulting, especially for permaculture work in zones 4 and 5. Learn more about these great folks at blazing-star.com.
Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash? Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, rooted bacon. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawn serene. Give me all that I can take. Give me stuff that I can break.
And welcome back, folks. Looking at some of the comments on the chat. It's great to have these folks commenting. Linda wrote, "All our cats are rescue." I know that turtle, she writes. Bunny Lover wrote, "My daughter and son-in-law just adopted a full-grown French lop that had been abandoned in Barrington with a head of cabbage to sustain him." Now, I don't know what a lop is. Do you?
It's a type of rabbit.
How did you know that? I have no idea. And they figure he was adopted as a cute little kitten and then dumped when he got to be 11 pounds and aggressive. The House Rabbit Society in Wheaton is a good place to adopt rabbits from. Okay. And, oh, yeah. And Dan loves that, the shot of the old elm in the harbor there. I mean, did you see how far up he was on that? Those Bartlett guys, they know their stuff, but wow, you can't be afraid of heights if you want to be an arborist. And that's something you have to take into consideration. Well, I suppose there are arborists who don't climb. There's a lot of work to be done, not just at the top of trees, but at the base of trees as well, and in the labs and all the other places but that, yeah, I had to play that because that is just an amazing, amazing tree. So, okay, interesting.
Lap rabbits have ears down instead of up. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's the rabbits that look like basset hound ears.
Got it. Now that makes sense. I just saw this comment. Wow.
Which one?
The Frustrated Atheist. Appreciate you had Lake County Forest Preserve on there, possibly selling 43 acres of forest preserve to expand Waukegan Airport. I did hear about that.
Yeah, someone mentioned that another week on the show.
This needs to be brought to the public's attention. We'll take a look at it and see. From what I understand, I thought there was going to be a swap, and that's all. I don't know a lot about it. From what I remember, what was going on is that. But I want to get back to last week. It seems like a year ago since last Monday.
No, Dan's Costa's comment. I love trees, but afraid of heights. That's part of why I grow bonsai.
That's true.
Not a lot of height there in those bonsai,
Yeah, really.
so you don't have to climb too high.
But since Monday, when I went out to Skokie Village Hall and the Board of Trustees meeting, which was packed, which was amazing.
For the Carvana Tower.
Yeah, the Carvana Tower proposal. And I've learned a lot of stuff since then. First of all, on Monday, I learned about the dignity and intelligence of the people who comment, who came out on a cold night and waited through a meeting that didn't start until 8 p.m. Finished, I think, about 12:30.
Yeah, the vote was at 11:55.
And they all stood patiently in line, made tremendously insightful and moving comments. And one of the things you realized, and the idea was to convince the board not to put up this Carvana tower, which is going to result in bird deaths because it's going to be lighted glass, 14 stories
14
tall.
stories, the tallest one they've got.
Some mitigation, bird mitigation, not enough, according to the experts. Right across from Harms Woods, which is one of the gems of the Cook County Forest Preserve District.
So it's basically Old Orchard Road and the Edens just west.
Yeah, and they're not even going to turn off the lights facing the freeway, as if birds aren't going to care and fly across that way. Oh, no, don't worry. And what I didn't realize, one of the things I didn't realize was that there was a pact about billboards on the Edens. I didn't know about that. I was ignorant.
No billboards on the Edens.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it until that meeting, and now thinking of driving on the Edens. Yeah, you're right. You don't see billboards. This is a violation of that. This is a clear violation. It makes me wonder. Now, is that just a Skokie pact, or was that a pact among various communities there?
I think it's all along there for a variety of reasons.
Well, it seems to me you could make the argument that you're violating that pact, because that's a billboard. I'm sorry, folks, because it's going to say Carvana at the top of it, right?
And lit.
And be lit up. But so I didn't know that. It's next, very close to the Holocaust Museum, second largest Holocaust museum in the country. So that's
close to the Skokie Lagoons corridor.
It's an insult to that. And the other thing I didn't realize is the way politics are set up in Skokie. And on one of my posts I had on Facebook, one of our listeners and viewers posted a blog post from Irv Levitt, and it's just from December of last year, about how the Skokie Caucus Party has run the village since 1965. They allow parties in Skokie, and the Caucus Party has basically been the party that everybody elects, which has sent the voting rates down to nothing. I mean,
under 10%, I think it's
right. It says the turnout is under 10%, sometimes well under, because it's one party rule. It's like the Politburo there they are in Skokie. There was a whopping 11% turnout for last spring's election. And there one independent got on because of a scandal on one of the candidates. So the candidate had to drop out. The independent came in and got voted in, and he was the one lone vote against.
The one dissenting vote. Yes.
Right. So I didn't know that. I mean, and it's interesting that that is the situation. And unfortunately, the next election isn't until 2025. But one of the folks there said, we have memories. We have long memories, and we will not forget this. So it was one of the things you realized at the meeting, after the meeting, is that the vote was preordained. The testimony wasn't going to make any difference at all. And that's a problem. If your elected officials are not listening to you. So I was just moved by the people who testified and how passionate they were about this. And by the way, I want to thank Eric Bedofsky, who was the one who posted that blog post by Irv Levitt about the voting in Skokie, because I didn't know that. Irv says he didn't know that. And he lives in Skokie. So, so now we have another meeting on the 22nd. I don't think anything's going to change. I forget exactly what they're going to be determining. But WTTW, Patty Wetley, wrote about, her headline was, Carvana made a lot of promises to appease opponents of its 14-story glass tower, what's to hold the company to them. And the more, and my friend Janet Ginsburg sent me a bunch of stuff about Carvana, about the sketchiness of the company, and how because the transactions are online, a lot of that money is not going to go to Skokie. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and on and on and on. The whole
putting
thing
up
is,
another one of these towers in Schaumburg, and I haven't heard a word about it.
Well, maybe that's the next one. Let's see what forest preserve that one's next to.
Well, and you keep looking at, this is a gimmick. It's a fad. It's a 5 years from now, is that going to be sitting there empty?
You're the one who said we're going to look at that in 5 years and go say, oh, that was so 2021. You know? Yeah, it is. It's a gimmick, because most of the cars they deliver are not via the tower. I don't even know why they have the tower. You're right. It's just a stupid gimmick. So, yikes. Yeah, but it was an eye opener for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Believe me, I think there's going to be repercussions for this, because a lot of folks were kind of stunned. Me. So we got a bunch of other stuff here that we wanted to talk about.
Bell Bowl, anything to update?
Well, Bell Bowl had yeah, there's a meeting this week that I think I'm going to be going to. I've been invited to. Let me find that. I'm sorry, I don't have that.
It's the Save Bell Bowl Prairie.
Yeah, it's the Parks
for new listeners.
Yeah, exactly. If you want more information, go to savebellbowlprairie.org. There's a Parks Chamber event this Wednesday where the board is going to be speaking, the airport board at Chicago Rockford International Airport. And there's going to be a couple of tables there sponsored by Sinisippi Audubon Society. And they've invited me to come and sit with them. And I don't know if anything's going to be accomplished, but the idea is to have a presence and talk to people. Talk to the people who are there about what's going on and why the prairie is so important. And who knows what's going to happen, but I know a lot of folks have been writing to the governor and writing to our state senators, or not our state senators, but our two senators, national senators. And I think it's on Pritzker's radar, but whether he'll do anything is... that
seems to be the only thing that's going to make a difference at this point.
Frankly, I don't think either Durbin or Duckworth is going to step up and do anything. I think that's Pritzker's job. They can. I'm sorry. They can. If you want...
I just meant if it would hold weight.
It would hold weight. They're senators. They're U.S. senators. That's what I have to say about that. If you think if Dick Durbin picked up the phone and called some of the folks in charge and said, you really need to stop this. You really need to slow this down. They're going to say no. Do you really?
Well, I guess I'm coming from the fact that the 4 federal agencies named in the lawsuit have all said.
Well, that might be why Durbin does not pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. But I can't imagine why this cannot be slowed down. Mm-hmm. That's the point, I think, right now. The bulldozers are scheduled to be fired up on March 1st. And you know what? I think they'll do it. I think they'll do it on that day. just to shove it in people's faces and say, we can do this. We can do pretty much anything we want because we have the money, we have the power, we control the land. The latest thing is the bullying tactics from the airport authority to the Natural Land Institute saying, we're going to put you on the hook for the legal expenses because we're going to accuse you of filing a frivolous lawsuit. And then you're going to be, frivolous, as if saving species is frivolous. They're playing hardball. They've been playing hardball from the get-go, from October, November. There's been no indication that they're willing to speak to anybody.
They're not even interested.
No, they
and
don't want to talk.
Domenico's pointing out it's federal tax dollars the airport needs.
Yeah. And there's state money as well that could be put into new plans. And by the way, Domenico has, it's so confusing because and some groups say, well, there's no alternative plans. Well, we've had Domenico on the show, Domenico D'Alessandro, who's an architect, a landscape architect, and has come up with alternate plans. For that area. Now, it's nothing official. The airport authority hasn't even looked at them, but don't say there are no alternatives because Domenico has done many of them. In fact, he keeps revising them every time he gets more information. And he's doing it on his own time and his own dime.
Yeah, and it's not just this, but it's the overall expansion plans for the airport. Going into floodplains, affecting the river, everything else. It's not just this little bit of prairie. And
Domenico, I know you're watching and you're commenting here. As far as I know, the grand plan is still not been seen by anybody. We have no idea how this extends into the future. I could be wrong about that, but as far as I know, the airport authority is keeping this close to the vest. So they're not transparent. They're not willing to engage. So I hate to be a pessimist. It doesn't look good, is the way I would say, because having looked at Skokie and other things that I've seen in the past, and I wonder about the
Lincoln Yards.
Lincoln Yards. Oh my goodness, Lincoln Yards was an opportunity to change the world. All right, and set up something that folks had never seen before in an an in-city natural area, but they just went for more metal and metal and glass and concrete, and it's connected to the south side of Chicago. It's connected to the recycling industry they're going to put there, and to the waste dump on the mouth of the Calumet. These are all connected. These are all, and here is my response, Peggy. This is my response because I think all of these issues are connected, and this is the response we need to make.
We've made too many compromises already, too many retreats. They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
That's how I feel about it. At some point, where do you step up and say, the line must be drawn here?
Enough.
Enough is enough. Doug Tallamy on our show was saying that we're pulling the rivets out of our own planet, and then it's going to crumble into nothing. And we don't even see it. It's in the name of progress. Progress does us no good if there's no planet, if there's no species, if they're gone, if the water is fouled, if the air is fouled, if climate change is out of control.
Everything is unhealthy.
It doesn't do you any good to have progress. So, okay. And Domenico says the airport authority is destroying the ecosystem and not even getting the airport they describe they need.
The only plan the airport has shown is from 2013, he says.
Okay, good. Thanks. See, so I wasn't wrong about that. All right, let's grab a couple of other headlines here that are.
Well, should we go with something more positive than koalas declared endangered species in
Well,
Australia?
yeah, just so you know, koalas have been declared, and there's avian flu in Indiana.
Tyson Foods is using land twice the size of New Jersey to grow feed
All
for.
right. I've got while we're on that one, okay? They're using land twice the size of New Jersey, to grow crops to feed their factory farms. Okay, so that got me thinking. Why is it always the size of New Jersey? Why are the comparisons? A number of years ago, when I was talking to folks about the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, I found somebody had written that the dead zone is larger than the state of New Jersey, and I thought, okay, that's an odd thing to why New Jersey? Well, I go online yesterday because it bugged me, and I find bizarre dog bone asteroid is bigger than New Jersey. Okay. Size of Portugal.
Bigger than Newark.
Size of Portugal compared to New Jersey. Western wildfires have now burned an area bigger than, you guessed it, New Jersey. What is it about New Jersey that is the measuring stick for everything that goes on in the world? I do not understand that. How did New Jersey become the measuring stick?
I don't know. Does Bruce Springsteen have something to do with that, perhaps?
I don't know, but everybody's always comparing things to New Jersey. All right, let me copy this because I want to I'll mention this because it's, give me 2 seconds here. Unless you got one, and you're welcome to, boom, from Live Science. Here we go. Highly pathogenic bird flu hits U.S. farm. This is in Indiana. What?
I like the scientists racing to gather winter data on the Great Lakes.
Oh, that's
something.
All right. I'll just say that there's 29,000 turkeys have been culled in Indiana because of the H5N1. Keep an eye out, folks. All right, go ahead.
So this was a piece that you had found from ABC News, February 3rd.
It was actually sent to me by Andrew Fedorovsky, so we got to give him a ding and credit.
Yeah, scientists are racing to gather winter data on the warming Great Lakes. As winter changes through the region, scientists want to know what that means. And there's really not been a whole lot of research done on what's going on in the lakes in the wintertime. It's in the summer. So right now, they're doing field studies across all 5 Great Lakes on Lake Michigan. It's up in Green Bay, where they are going onto frozen sections of the lakes, doing a winter snapshot, drilling through the ice to measure things like light levels at different depths, water movement, presence of carbon, bacteria, nutrients, looking at phosphorus overload in the wintertime. According to this article, there's even algae blooms that have been detected in Lake Erie's Central Basin during cold periods.
Yeah,
so
even
they're
in
trying
cold.
to figure out what's going on.
All right, here's one more. It's kind of fun. Trees are exploding in Texas. As seen on IFL Science, Texas has been experiencing record temperature drops. This has been causing maple trees in Texas, and maybe Skeet knows more about this, maybe Dan does, to explode. People have reported these explosions to cause loud popping sounds similar to gunshots. And Master Arborist Stuart McKenzie explains that trees explode in cold weather because the water content in the cells and tissues freeze. We see it mostly on warm, sunny winter days and very cold nights that dip well below freezing. Maples tend to suffer from this phenomenon just before sugaring season. They will take up water quickly as the sun warms their bark and tissues. Sap will freeze and expand at night and crack. This can be heard during the late night hours. Some think it sounds like a shotgun or cannon. From midwinter to early spring, this can occur when the temperature swings snow melts, and warm sun, cold nights work in unison. Maples, cherries, birch, and some pines can behave in this manner. So there you go. Exploding trees.
There you go. Okay, well, we got one other thing before we break.
All right.
On a good note, from Sarah Botka, friend of the show.
Yay, Sarah.
She writes, there's a seed swap on March 5th at the Evergreen Park Public Library from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. No need to register. Just drop by and say hi to me, she says.
All right. I like that. And she's got the link there, too, as well. All right. So meteorologist Rick DiMaio is coming up. But before that, one more time.
We've made too many compromises already. Too many retreats. They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
Wow, that's some great stuff. There's going to be some terrific films at the One Earth Film Festival this year. So that one, I'm definitely going to see that one. That looks so moving. Welcome, meteorologist Rick DiMaio. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mike and Peg. That was moving. Definitely on a Sunday morning. It kind of captures your breath, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And there's a lot of good stuff. We've been showing the film trailers from the One Earth over the last few weeks, and we're going to have an interview with one of the directors or producers in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
So here we are. I saw a light dusting of snow this morning as I came downstairs. Not much. Oh, but I have something to show you that is very cool. Now, you'll remember that several weeks ago, we saw the pancake ice. Okay.
Right.
So here is what our friend Mac Austin sent us last week that I just could not believe in Lake Michigan.
Wow.
That is ice balls formed.
Yeah, ice ball.
And here's several more pictures. I mean, it's just too cool.
Yeah.
Look at that. Yeah, I did not know the lake did that. She's got one more here. And this was up in Rogers Park, just a couple of blocks from where you used to live, Rick.
And then you saw my photo from yesterday that now these are all gone.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got that too, which is here's Peg's photo from yesterday, which is a gorgeous photo, but you've got some ice along the lake. And Rick, as you said, that's a good way to prevent erosion in the winter.
Yeah, I mean, we quickly went back into a very cold pattern Friday afternoon once we got, or once that first polar front came through. In addition to that, as Peg pointed out, most of that ice either melted or got pushed out into the middle of the lake with southwest winds. And we've seemed to be in that pattern. You go southwest for a couple of days, you lose everything, and then you go slightly northerly, and especially that area from about Wilmette southward where the lake kind of angles out a little bit. It's very easy to get lake ice piling up, generally south of Highland Park. And two things.
We're still up in that, like that little bite, that indentation.
Yeah, and another thing is that the wind is always a little bit stronger 2 or 3 miles offshore. Just, the friction of the surface, and right along the shoreline, it tends to slow down. So what happens is the wind actually turns inward a little bit. So you'll almost get this like speed divergence of the lake and then convergence right along the lakefront. So the wind actually turns towards the shore. That's one of the reasons why you'll get those winds kind of blowing in like that, even during the springtime. And that will drag the surface water. Whether or not it causes the rolling that creates the ice balls, that's probably more of something that's happening, in the smaller areas of the little inlets and harbors that you have from Jarvis Beach southward. You have all these little pockets of water that kind of move around.
that
You
have
get a lot-
something to
you'll
do
get-
with the ice going up and down vertically in the lake too? I'm trying to remember how those
Yeah.
form.
I think if anything, if you just have water that's going back and forth, you'll get the pancake. But if it starts to go up and down those little inlets, you'll begin to take the edges and kind of roll them around on the front side. So it's almost like taking your hand and doing like that. Your large thing of dough for pizza will probably just get flat on one side, but then you start to do that and up and down. It
Kind of like
definitely
hail going up and down too.
Yeah. The only way hail can really get round is for it to be thrown up and down and then sideways, and then obviously it's moving through a lot of water as well. So the water kind of helps reshape the edges. And then sometimes when it's thrown out in front of the thunderstorm, a chance to go up and down, you'll get these like little tails to it. So you can always tell the severity of a thunderstorm by the nature of the size of the hail and the shape of the hail as well. But yeah, those pictures of the ice balls is pretty cool.
Amazing.
There is a
Thanks, Mac, for sending those.
Yeah, thanks for sending that to us, Mac.
Yeah, there's actually a study going on this week by I think 4 or 5 different universities across all of the Great Lakes, studying the nature of ice, the shape of ice, the volume of the ice, the aerial coverage of ice. I think that story was published last week or about a week and a half ago, attributed on last week's Weekly Weather Wire. And what's really interesting is usually right around the 5th to about the 10th of February is when you generally tend to get your highest concentration of ice that covers all the Great Lakes. And it was really interesting because just last week I was talking to my Loyola students about how you can't look at just the surface area of ice, you have to look at the thickness. And sure enough, a lot of ice on the lake to basically none, and that was because the ice was so thin. So you were able to blow it around a lot more due to the fact that the wind was out of the southwest. So it was kind of neat to be able to not only talk about it from a standpoint of current analysis, but basically stand in my classroom and look out the window and show them. So that makes it really easy to prove a point.
Yeah. And here's something else that you showed us that I thought was pretty interesting. It's the webcam from Beijing.
Yeah. Can I hop real quick back into this? I looked up the ice balls on Lake Michigan.
Oh, okay.
This is just a couple articles here. Like it's fairly rare.
Really?
And
Okay.
according to this one article, which was Detroit News, actually, they form on beaches when weather conditions are just right. The temperatures fall just below freezing along shallow beaches. Slush collects into round shapes, and the waves sculpt the ice chunks into orbs.
Yeah, and I think it's more important to realize that it needs to go up and down so you can get that. So the flatness has got to go more vertical, both up and down. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, I always tell people, even if you live 2 miles away from the lake, it doesn't mean that you're going to go down to the lake to actually see things during the wintertime. Most people go, I ain't going anywhere outside or along the lakefront. It's too cold. But it's actually really cool to be able to see this. In such a large city. And speaking of large cities, this webcam from Beijing, I show this to my students every day. And again, when we talk about emissions and the burning of coal, I show this and they go, oh my God. and then not to bash China, but if you show webcams from other parts of the area, in and around China, this is not around China.
No, that's what I have.
Although Chinatown's not far away from this webcam. The air quality is not that bad. So it's not bad in China. It's just bad in a lot of the areas where you have, large populations of people. So again, if someone wants to say Chicago's a dirty city, show them a webcam of Beijing and show them of Chicago, and we got them beat by a mile. And it's not that China or Beijing doesn't have the ability to have these, cold Arctic air masses move in and clear the stuff out. They do. Matter of fact, they get just as cold as us sometimes, but it doesn't help in washing out the soot and the pollution that city unfortunately continues to have.
And something else that you sent us, which was kind of cool, and I guess you sent it to your students as well, is the information about electric cars, which was pretty fascinating about how the number of electric cars this year is going to go up quite a bit, but they're still playing catch up. You know, you and I are old enough, and Peggy, all three of us, old enough to know when there were active efforts to suppress the electric cars in the United States. There's a famous movie about that from the 80s.
Who killed the electric car?
Who killed the electric car, exactly. And if we had been on top of that from the beginning, we wouldn't be scrambling now and trying to figure out how do we make this transition.
Yeah, and you know, I was at the auto show last night, and by the way, it's only half the size. That's because they just don't have enough cars. But every single ship or company that was out there, not a dealership, they're obviously the companies, had an EV. Every one has an electric vehicle, and that is what everybody is talking about, and it's pretty cool. And you see people get inside and they go, "Wow, this is really cool." And the first thing everybody wants to know is what's the range of the vehicle, and then people hear, "Well, 250, 280, 300," and they go right away. They go, "Oh, that's not very far." But if you fill up your gas in your car, your range is usually about 275 to about 300. It really is the same. The only problem is that you've got to realize that there's not as many charging stations across the country, and there's also different driver habits that will lower that range. In other words, if you get an electric vehicle as all-wheel drive, that brings the numbers down. If you're driving aggressively, that's going to bring the numbers down. Same thing when you drive in a car with, combustible engine, but the bottom line is you have to be a little bit more aware of where you're driving and where the plug-in, capability is. So I think once that happens, and then they begin to obviously produce more of these, especially trucks now. You're seeing Ford producing the F1, the Lightning, I think it's called. The prices will come down. So the prices are still a little bit high compared to other vehicles. But in the end, if you're not paying for gas, and gas right now is almost $4 a gallon in a lot of places, not only are you doing great for the environment, but you're also doing great for your pocketbook. So it's always going to be one of these things where it's like baby steps. It's like, 10 years ago, people were buying flat screen TVs and they were $5,000. Now you can get one for under $1,000.
You can get oh my gosh, you could get one for $250. It's crazy.
It's probably not going to last you a long time, but you're right, Mike. I mean, the overall price of these vehicles is eventually going to come down. Now you got to be, because they're not completely off the grid. You're still using coal to generate electricity. So depending on where the electricity is coming from, you're not completely zero emissions. So
plus the components are still.
And things like this in that New York Times article, by the way, those photos were from the New York Times. There are fewer than 50,000 public charging stations. That might seem like a lot in the United States, but the infrastructure bill that Congress passed in November includes $7.5 billion for 500,000 new chargers, although experts say even that number is too small. And And Domenico writes in our chat room, electric cars were around in 1927, complete with recharge station. Then the oil boom came.
Yeah. I mean, you're always going to find some things that are for or against something. But the bottom line is, at least we have an administration in place that understands progress will help an economy a lot more than going back and try to make things, quote, great again, just because we were comfortable with that. So, and again, this is one of the things that I have to deal with my climate change class, is keeping up with all the information out there so that the students come out of a class more than what they did coming So it's good for me because I get to learn about it. I went around to all the different, car places that I was at the show last night with, going to and asking them questions and see how much they knew about it. I asked them like, what's the carbon footprint? How much are we off the grid? And they probably didn't know half of the answers to the questions. But these are the things that eventually will separate people going, yes, I want to get this, or no. All right.
Yeah.
So what they really need to start doing is not just having a car there, but showing where the charging stations are now and then where they're going to be.
And I think also updating. Sorry to jump in there. Updating the information, because many people have a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old impression in their heads. It's it's the same thing with nutrition. It's the same thing with environment. It's the same thing with whatever. They're going off of old beliefs and old knowledge.
Yeah,
and things change quickly.
And then when I get students who are marketing majors, I go, this is where I want you to use to help you do your job. So if you're going to be doing marketing for GM, is it just our car is better than theirs, or here is the plan in the future of what the country is doing to make the car that you want to buy beneficial? It's just a different way of thinking about things, and sometimes everybody gets railroaded into this. For a while it was miles per gallon, and then for a while it was how much feet and how much horsepower you have. What's the size of your engine? Everybody kind of follows the same lead and stuff. And I didn't see anything that was really different last night. But just about every electric car always had around it like potted plants and some sort of green shade.
Marketing.
Oh, yeah, marketing.
And of course all the people at the show, as you went to each of the different companies, the one who you just come from was texting their friends at the other one saying, "Oh, that guy's coming over. Go get a cup of coffee."
No, I don't. I usually tell them that the door handle is too close to my elbow, or the screen is too big. You guys got to change something. But I always go to the auto show with a purpose, and that is to enjoy it without having to go to a dealership with them pressing you, on, do you want to buy the car? And so again, when people go to the auto show, make sure you're asking them questions like the range, and how often do I have to fill up? And Deb
writes in our chat room, the consideration also is the length of time it takes to recharge an EV. What's the waiting time, for a line to do that? And that's the other thing. You can fill up a gas tank in a matter of minutes, and it might not be the case with charging a car. So you have to plan around charging an EV. But that's all going to become
and
second
what happens
nature.
to all these cars stuck at the side of the road because they didn't plan, or they're stuck in traffic jams? That's got to get worked out.
Yeah.
And then post something interesting. She says what she never sees is the information on the literal how-to. What am I going to do with my current car when there's no secondary market anymore for internal combustion, for instance? What happens to all these cars on the road?
I think that's probably years down the road. Yeah. But they're actually, planning on putting things in cars like these little fans on the bottom, so that when you're driving, the fans actually generate, electricity that actually, helps charge the engine. You're going, little fans are actually doing that. I think I learned something also when you're braking. Something with the brake is actually generating some sort of additional charge as well. But I know that over the last 5 years, the main Tesla S, I think you can get like another 15 to 20, like less than 10 minutes or something like that. So I'm not too sure about it. But the thing about it is, from my perspective, as soon as you talk about it, it almost makes you seem like an expert. So if you're going to learn a little bit about it, you got to learn a lot about it.
Yeah,
which is fine. I'm okay with that. But at the same time, just going electric doesn't mean you're completely off the grid. And I think that's the key thing here. And then on top of that as well, if you do end up all of a sudden trying to figure out how to generate more electricity, how are we doing that? Is the demand for coal increasing? Is the demand for natural gas increasing? All those things. So these are always things to talk about. And that's why you have progress, is to figure out how to get better without spending too much or not being sustainable at the same time as well.
Well,
So
what
it's all
I
We
good.
should do a feature one of these weeks
and
on
Yeah.
some of these issues.
but what I think everybody is waiting for is to see the meteorological map of China because they're so interested.
Yeah, this is actually the forecast chart from the South Korea Meteorological Agency. I think everybody can see the Korean Peninsula, and then when you go to the left a little bit, you see the obviously China and all those yellow highlight stations. That's all haze. That's all haze, and that's
Wow.
all smog. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get those big highs, and there's nothing to move the air around.
Yeah.
Further north, where it's much colder, those are temperatures all about 20 to 30 degrees below zero. That's all Siberia at that point. To that area, there's really no people living there. You don't really have much going on. But man, as soon as you cross over that border from Russia into Mongolia and then south into China, everything changes. The good news is that there's that little L is actually going to produce about 1 to 2 inches of snow in that particular area. But how about this? Total snowfall. You don't see maps like this too often, do you? But this actually is a forecast that I generated off of one of the models. Total for the next 7 days for the Olympics is basically less than 1 inch. And again, that area gets less than an inch of moisture in a 3-month period of time. So it still is, to me, it boggles my mind that Beijing was granted the Winter Olympics. I mean, last Olympics was in South Korea, in Pyongyang. I think that's what it was. But they get quite a bit of snow there. And then the Winter Olympics have been in Nagano and Sapporo, which is northern Japan. They get 3 inches a year because they get a lot of what's called sea effect snow. It's like having the Olympics in Marquette, Michigan.
Why don't they?
Olympics,
I think they need to go to Marquette, Michigan, and that's about the only place on the planet they're going to be able to do that in 10 years.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, whether or not they can support all those people in that small town,
No,
I'm
they
sure
could.
they can. Cool.
I don't think so.
I think, yeah, the mountains up there, the Porcupine Mountains, probably not tall enough, but it is kind of it is really an amazing area for snow. You're never lacking snow. So a little bit of snow for the Olympics, but other than that, status quo from the standpoint of it being cold.
All right, I want to show you something that you sent me. I'm experimenting here and trying to get these graphics to go. This is
This is the loop.
This is the loop pivotal weather. Now, I wish I could make it larger. I tried. There doesn't seem to be much I can do, but you can see if I animate it, this is the coming up for the next couple of weeks here, and I can go back and set it like this and do it one frame at a time. And as you can see over the next few days, this is the interesting part, is you can see that low coming in there. I love the dumbbells here, and that's about when that storm is going to hit us. Now, you mentioned in your report, Rick, that you thought we'd be getting some snow. Last night on one of the weathercasts on TV, the guy said it looks like it's going to kind of just sideswipe us. What's the situation right now?
Yeah,
Thursday,
Thursday,
I mean.
Right. So the storm is basically a two-parter, kind of like the last one as well. And if you think about it, if you go back about 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that once we get through this week of non-weather, we're going to get right back into very active weather. And it does look like it's going to happen. This next one is going to have probably twice as much moisture with it. So what I'm concerned about is when the precipitation does begin mid-Wednesday, and these maps, by the way, are not going to really show that. The ones that I sent in the report will, because this is just surface pressure. It doesn't show temperature or moisture.
I have the other one here that I can pop up, and this shows, I think it shows it a little better. So this is today, I guess, and then here's the coming week. And this is what you're talking about, I guess.
Yeah. So this is a total QPF, quantitative precipitation forecast, but it's not showing you the entire system. It's only showing every 12 hours.
Yeah.
So it's not really going to help us with understanding what's going on. But the bottom line is we have quite a bit of frozen ground. So that if you stop it here, this is where the main axis of precipitation is going to be by Thursday morning. The initial onset of precipitation is going to be all rain, and it's also going to get quite warm. So we'll be in the teens today, 20s tomorrow, mid-30s on Tuesday, and probably 45 on Wednesday. So a lot of melting. But in addition to that, any rain that occurs, if it comes down heavily, which could be about an inch to an inch and a half, it ain't going to be able to, absorbed by the ground. So you're going to have a lot of puddles, not widespread flooding, but you're going to have a lot of puddles. And we typically get that kind of weather around here, a lot of ponding. Mm-hmm. I did watch someone this morning on Channel 7. He went bonkers with the new run of the GFS taking the storm further north.
You went what? Sorry, Rick, you broke up. What?
He went bonkers. Meaning that he went way overboard in showing the northward track of the GFS. Now, 3 runs of the GFS, which is the global forecast system, have been taking the system south. The European model has also been trending. So we've only had 1 run that has taken it north, and it's called hook, line, and sinker. With this is what's going to happen. Now, it's okay to be a cheerleader in snow. We all do it. But you got to exercise a little bit of restraint, literally based off computer models from last night. All right. So
I wouldn't.
It's a long way off.
All I can think of is I wouldn't want to be a meteorologist having another meteorologist watch me on TV.
Well, this guy is pretty good, and I was kind of curious that he went far forward with something, because what also happens is you end up shoehorning the other people at your station. So an unwritten rule that you don't go nuts on pushing stuff, because what ends up happening is then everybody starts to ask the other people who are coming on board, hey, I heard this is going to happen. If you see something different and it shifts south, now everybody looks to be like, now what's going to happen? Now what's going to happen? Now what's going to happen? So you got to be really careful about that. And it's not so much about being right, but it's about being responsible, because everybody is, kind of in on the same forecast. But it does appear that this is going to be something that's going to be more south at this point. Could it move a little bit further north? Sure, it could do that. And it looks like it has the potential to do that. If that does occur, what's going to end up occurring, just to have people understand what we have going on here, is a very wet, soggy, really miserable day on Wednesday with a lot of rain. And then once that front comes south of us Wednesday night into Thursday, we're going to transition over to sleet, freezing rain, and snow. These kind of setups don't produce ice storms because the ground is wet and the ground is warm. So even if you do get a little icing on power lines and trees, it's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be windy, all right? So literally you'll have rain bouncing off things. But we are going to transition over to freezing rain and sleet and then all snow. But it still looks like it's too early to really figure out where that second wave is moving through. And again, this is very similar to the last one. This isn't like a gigantic storm that's pivoting northward. It's basically a sheared out low that's kind of moving along the front. And as long as it stays sheared out, it's becoming a really decent, large area of low pressure is kind of low, okay? So what happens, I should say, is minimal. I shouldn't use the word low in the same sentence. But you don't have this giant area of round precip where you're going to be north or south. So what this is here is you got this strung out area of snow that could, in some areas, produce 6 to 10 heavy wet snow onto freezing rain and sleet. Bottom line, a major winter storm moving through parts of the Midwest on Thursday. Wednesday is basically wet, and in addition to that, it looks like it's going to be a heavy rain and a severe weather outbreak over the Mid-South. So this is a pretty prolific moisture-producing storm. It never really goes completely, like a big, deep low where it kind of backs up into the cold air. It never really does that. But it does look like by the time you get on Friday, which should be the next week, we get very cold. So anything that does fall is going to be frozen most likely by Friday. And then we warm back up Saturday and Sunday. So the pattern is somewhat progressive in nature. And I think this is the best way to look at these forecast maps, is this is the overall liquid. And even if we get, say, only 25% of this in the form of snow, you're still talking about 3 or 4 inches. So we're going to get snow. The question is, are we going to get that much or maybe, that much? So it's not going to be a lot, but it's definitely going to be in that range of a shovelable, plowable snow. Where exactly it lines up, that's still a long ways off at this point. I think we'll probably know better, I would say by Monday night when the actual area of energy begins to move into the area of the United States. This thing hasn't even developed yet. That's why you got to be really careful about going, overboard.
Yeah, and it's
Compared to
interesting.
last February. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's
Sorry.
true. Yeah, last February we just got slammed for 3 weeks, and that was the whole winter. It's this, we were talking earlier in the show about this winter, and people, as they do in February, start complaining how cold it is, and they really want it to end. And Peggy and I were just noting that it really hasn't been a tough winter at all. Not really. It's been pretty mild.
There's no long sub-zeros or anything.
Right. And then even with this past week, I was amazed at how mild we got 2 nights in a row, mid to upper 30s. It was actually pretty nice. So we did have some, freezing temperatures clearly that were, uncomfortable early in the week. And then obviously today. Oh, this is really funny. I was looking at the new Mustang, the e-vehicle, and it's the only way to open up the car. Well, the main way of opening up the car is this little round button that you have to press, and it's above the handle. And I was talking to the person who was showing it to me, the product specialist, and I go, you realize that the handle here is going to catch snow, and if you get a lot of snow and ice on the way the car is shaped, the button's going to get covered with snow and ice, so you won't be able to touch it. And it won't feel the heat of your hand. And she goes, well, most people will be in a car inside their garage. I'm like, okay, well, what happens if you're out driving and you park and you get sleazy rain, you go out there and you can't? She goes, well, you can use your phone to warm up the car ahead of time. And I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to a brick. Like, you're not getting it. The way this is designed, you're gonna allow the car's, the support beam to allow that button to get covered up. You need to have it either under the handle or a way that it's not going to accumulate ice and snow in it.
And not everybody lives in the suburbs and has a garage, okay?
Or lives in the suburbs and doesn't have a garage either.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, well, what happens if you're sitting outside? She goes, well, you can use your phone to warm up the car ahead of time. I'm like, really? It's like,
right.
So you know how you leave your phone in the car in the sun too long and it doesn't work? How about this button on the car in the sun?
Yeah. I love it.
I'm the worst person. There's that guy again. Get away from me.
I'm telling you, that's why
I got a 15-year-old car, so
they're out there. They're texting their buddies and going, "Hey, that guy's coming down here. Don't talk to him. Don't talk to him at all. You'll just go crazy." Yeah. All right, Rick. So maybe we'll have some snow. We'll probably have some snow. Maybe more, maybe less. Who knows? We'll wait for things to develop.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a prolific precipitation maker, nonetheless, which is good for the farmers. Those areas that have been really dry, this is going to be a good melt off. This is going to be a good rainmaker, and from an agricultural standpoint, which is what we need to think about over the next 2 months, this is exactly what we need.
All righty. Okay.
We'll end on a good note, right?
Yeah, we'll end on a good note. You're not you're going to be playing hockey again this week?
I don't know. My bones are a little tired.
Okay, don't worry about it. All right, you have yourself a great week, and we will talk to you next Sunday.
And you'll be hearing from me with my updates, right?
Yeah. Let us know how that storm's going to go, and we'll get the word out.
As always, take care, guys.
All right, take care.
See you, Rick.
Okay, that's a wrap, as they say. So let's thank all the folks who were on the show today. Ryan Anderson from Midwest Grows Green, and Jodie Wiederkehr from the Chicago Alliance for Animals. Meteorologist Rick DiMaio. Want to thank Kathleen, who was really good at keeping my coffee warm, and who I think was actually the person behind this, not Legata. But I want to thank Legata and Basil the dog, and all of our listeners and followers. You guys
subscribe on our YouTube channel. Download the podcast and subscribe.
You guys are the best. Until next time, go green or
go home.
I hope I can find this control. I don't know where this is. It's going to do it.
Help!
Help!
Well, you didn't miss much.